If you are feeling burnt out on the constant stream of challenge content on YouTube, you're not alone. Viewers are increasingly seeking authentic and authoritative content that makes a genuine connection. And we're about to dive deep into why this shift is happening and what it means for you as a creator to dive into your YouTube success. Coming up.
Hey, welcome to the Video Creators Podcast presented by vidIQ. You know how you put a lot of time and energy into your YouTube channel for not nearly enough growth? Yep, we get it. We are here today to help you change that.
Hello, creators. How are you guys? It's great to chat with you again for another Video Creators Podcast brought to you by vidIQ like we do every single Monday. And we're just hanging out with Ingrid and Sam, two of the strategists here on the team, talking a bit more about some advanced growth tips, some tactics, next level strategy, about growing your business, reaching people, and changing lives. And how are you guys doing today? How's everything going?
Pretty good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Sam, you excited?
Why am I excited? I'm always excited, but why?
I'm excited because we get to do this in 3D.
That'll be interesting.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes.
Pretty soon,
It
right?
will be interesting.
We probably should elaborate what 3D means for people because that's still pretty vague. We are going to Vid Summit. Yay!
Yay! We need put a better yay confetti there.
Genuinely though, it's exciting. Vid Summit's coming up. I think it's weeks away now, and I can't wait. It's going to be interesting to meet everybody for the first time in person. I haven't met anybody. I've talked to you so much. So
yeah, same. It feels almost like a little bit like a blind date, but like with your coworkers. But it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be like weird to see everybody in 3D, like you said, but I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, for those of you that don't know, Vid Summit is a conference that a lot of YouTubers go to. All the hottest people, I think, you know what? Sam's boy, Ryan Trahan, I believe might be there.
My boy?
Oh, we're so going to have to get a photo. We're going to have to get a photo. Definitely.
There's still a challenge.
There's no way.
Me or Sam. We got to try. We have to try. We got to tell the audience if we're able to or not. We have to try. It's our one and only chance, Sam.
But it's a really fun event. Lots of really great YouTube knowledge is imparted there. There's a lot of really great networking, and the whole team is going to be there. It's exciting. I'm excited to go, and I'm excited for us to hang in real life.
Yeah, we're going to shoot episodes, right?
We are.
Like live
with Rob
episodes.
Wilson.
Yeah,
with Rob Wilson. Maybe we can drag Tim onto an episode since he'll be there as well.
Maybe we can drag Ryan Trahan. Probably not.
Yeah.
It's worth a shot. We can try.
Worth a shot.
Worth a
I
shot.
can dream. All right, guys. I feel like we could talk a little bit about the idea of challenge content. I feel like I've been noticing it with myself, my perspective, just the amount of it on the platform and how I'm feeling about it. I feel like the excitement for me is a little bit dying just because of the amount and how saturated it might feel sometimes. But I mean, that could be just coming from me. I'm curious, guys, what your thoughts are, and do you feel like it's losing its excitement, or what are your thoughts?
I actually kind of agree here. And it's not that I don't enjoy it. I do, but I think that you have so many people that are just trying to be, Jimmy or Eric or, any of the other really great creators that have dominate this niche. It's just a really broad, what's the word I'm looking for here? Help me out, Sam. Gap between like the elite in the challenge to everybody else. And there's just really a lot of it. It.
I feel like for me, like I have an idea of what I feel like challenge content is, but do you guys feel like it'd be helpful to kind of like define that? Like, what do we mean by challenge content?
What are your thoughts, Sam? I think you have some in mind.
Yeah, I guess when I think of challenge content, I think of the Mr. Beast. I think of the very punchy, highly edited, really fast-paced challenge.
Fast-paced.
It's at the beginning, it's really kind of like shouting in your face, like, this is what we're doing today. Here are the stakes. There's going to be a winner and a loser. Like, let's go. And it's just, kind of like it moves pretty quick, that sort of video.
It's a lot of the same thing. Like, money's up for grabs, survival's up for, like, trying to survive the challenge might be. And I feel like I've seen so much of the same kind of, whether it's a different scenario, it's the same thing. It's going to be either survival or money. And it's feeling predictable in a lot of ways too. Like, as soon as I see the thumbnail, I know what to expect. It's like I've seen it done a dozen times. Why would I click into it?
I feel like it's becoming, you said the word predictable, like, and it's becoming harder to stand out, to be different and unique. I think that the only way that you really can be now, because there's been so much created in that space, is really from a bigger budget, like we see.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger creators do, and it's kind of hard. I still enjoy the content. I watch a lot of it. I just don't watch it as much as I do anymore.
I feel like that's true in a sense too. Like the budget's getting bigger, that even the creators themselves know that like they have to keep pushing the envelope more and more and more to keep it exciting. And it's sad because I can see a challenge video that I would, a couple years ago think is the most exciting in the world, and now I'm like, it's kind of boring now. It's kind of like it's been done. And I find myself with creators that I used to love watching, I start clicking less and less because it's like, I don't know, that it's the same. It's predictable. It's what we said. I feel like I've now predicted what's the outcome's going to be, that I don't feel necessarily the need to click into the video.
Do you guys feel like there's a difference between challenge content and spectacle content?
Yes.
What would that be?
I feel like, from what my perspective, challenge is a little bit more accessible because that can mean so many different things, whereas spectacle feels like it's this big, grand approach at something that almost is inaccessible, if that makes sense. I can approach challenge content in the simplest forms, like doing a drawing contest between two people, but the spectacle is like, now there's sharks involved, there's a fire hoop that I have to jump through, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I feel like the allure to this type of video is the challenge. And when the question comes into place of like, how do we improve this from the last one we just did? I think the value, I guess, with quotations, that kind of comes from the audacity of the challenge. Like it almost needs to become a spectacle type of thing for it to get better and better and better. And, it's interesting even to see like Mr. Beast recently leaning into storytelling more. And it's like, okay, we have these massive spectacle challenges. How do we get the viewer to feel something and like explore some of these storylines that are happening within the challenge? And it's such an interesting way to kind of upgrade the challenge content when it's just making it more human versus and maybe this is why challenge content is becoming a bit more stale, because it's like, how big can you go? I mean, we've kind of seen the biggest, spectacle challenges
Squid
on
Game.
YouTube nowadays. So it's like,
It's interesting that you're saying this because I was actually just thinking it myself. I feel like the challenge content or the spectacle content that I really enjoy has very genuine like emotions and just reactions throughout it. You don't have people who are like trying to be in a YouTube video, for lack of a better way of putting it. It just feels very real. I just think of like the show Survivor, right? Yeah. It's kind of like the ultimate quintessential original challenge kind of content. And I still watch it 20 years later. Is that how long it's been on? It's kind of crazy. Was Blake even born then?
I don't know. Watched the first season. I was around for that.
You were around for that. Well, you were around for that. But even throughout the years, they've had to tweak that, right? So, and I think that that's one of the hurdles that this niche has, is what does challenge content 2.0 look like, going forward?
It's funny too. You brought up even Mr. Beast as well. One of the biggest criticisms he said he gets from his people he's getting feedback from is there's not enough emotional connection with the characters in his stories. And you've seen him push that, try and do more and more of that. So it's funny, even those who enjoy the challenge content still feel like I have no connection to the people itself. So that actually draws, like, I feel like the draw into the video is a lot less by not being pulled. And if someone loses money, I'm like, no big deal. But if I hear their story about how they're struggling or from the streets, like that creation story for them is what's going to pull me in that much more to it. So, and you've seen him kind of move that route. And yeah, I think that shift is definitely worth it. So I felt a lot more watching the content, rooting for a certain person that before never was the case, right?
I feel like with a a lot of that niche. Part of the issue that I think I have is I'm burnt out with the fast pace.
Yeah.
And I feel like there needs to be some sort of rhythm to the edit. There needs to be some sort of rhythm to the story in order for you to feel the emotion, to experience the breadth within the content even. Just have like, the video breathe a little so that you can feel it. So it is fascinating to watch him actually start to dip his toe in that direction as well.
Yeah. I think it puts a lot of pressure just in general on people to try to that fast pacedness, even when it comes to editing. Like I found myself when I was creating quite a bit to follow that same kind of path. And I'm curious, what do you guys see from clients in terms of connection to challenge content now and what they're feeling about it? What I get is people who are not challenge creators, but feeling the need to do that to be seen. I had a cleaning channel that was focused on, the idea of decluttering and how it affects, women, and how that she wanted to do stories of, these women who were like hoarding a bunch of things in their house, and it was really like causing depression, anxiety. And then a couple of conversations later, she's like, I got this entire challenge video about people competing for money, who can clean the best is going to win $10,000. And it's just like, where did that come from? But it's just, everyone has this mentality of, these other YouTube, gurus saying you need to do challenge content, you need to copy Mr. Beast in order to be seen.
But just because it works on one channel doesn't mean that it works on yours. And it doesn't mean that it works on your niche at all. I'm working with a creator right now, has a pretty good sized channel, and used to do a lot of like not exactly challenge content, but big builds and things like that. And have really kind of gone in a different direction. Now it's more telling stories a little bit more intentionally, and they have a different pace to them. And it's a little different. Yeah. And they're finding their way through that. They're kind of pivoting their way through that. Because the other type of content, it burns you out also.
Yes.
A little.
Yeah. I was going to say with the pacing, it's like, I think over the last couple of years, there have been a lot of improvements that creators have made with almost like the retention. Like it's gotten to the point where it's like retention hacking now, where it has a negative connotation. And it's like, you should absolutely cut things that don't need to be there in your video. But when it's getting to this point now where we're kind of burnt out, like you can only cut your content so far to make it better. And then also I think some of the language things used nowadays that are like, don't forget there's a big twist at the end. Make sure you stick around to the end to see this crazy thing. It's almost become this, like, as a viewer, we're burnt out with that too. Like, stop trying to retention hack me,
Hack
is kind of the word that comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
It's a good way of putting it. I've never thought about that before.
I agree with you, Sam. I feel like I don't think there's anything wrong, because what I don't want the audience to hear is I don't want them to hear I can't say that anymore. You can absolutely say that.
Yeah.
Just be intentional with when and where you say it. And if you can pull that off really authentically, because it's almost like it's a gift for the viewer that you want to make sure that they don't miss out, versus like, don't forget to do this, where it doesn't belong right there. If it doesn't, whatever you're doing in your video, if it's not moving your story forward, it belongs on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
Is the way I look at it.
I also, one thing you kind of mentioned too, Sam, is like cutting stuff out. Like people are removing a lot of personality just in general from the content for the sake of the flow too, or trying to get that retention hacking down. And that loses the personality. And yes, you'll get the views, but are you getting the community to come back and watch more and more? Because at this point, if I'm cutting all what I call the fluff, the personality moments, I'm missing on the opportunities to slip in my primal branding, or show my story or my emotions. And that was actually the one thing that Jimmy struggled with, Mr. Beast, because he's like, I don't know how to do it without seeing a drop in retention. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, should that be the focus if that's what we're trying to achieve, though? Just maybe take a break from the retention for 2 seconds and say, we want to help. We want to slip some sort of emotion in there. This is the line that I struggle with sometimes too, is like, do I fall too much in trying to make the best, most optimized video, rather than taking a sacrifice to slip in the emotion that needs to be in there for the sustainable long term of the channel, right?
I think you have to do what's best for the viewer, right, Blake? I think that's the question that creators have to ask themselves. Yes, retention is important. We all have that kind of stuff in the back of our minds, but is it really in service of the viewer in that moment? And if you can't authentically stand behind that saying, yes, absolutely, not because you want it to be true, but because it's actually true, right? That's really something to ask yourself in those moments, I feel.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting. I feel like you can almost cause more harm to your video if you like hyper edit it and hyper cut it. And you can actually have better retention if you leave some of the emotion in there. Have you guys listened to the Office Ladies podcast? Did you guys watch The Office very much?
No.
Okay, so the Office Ladies is basically it's Pam and Angela from the show. They do a podcast together, and they basically break down every episode. And so I know TV is definitely different from YouTube, but they talked about this one episode where this really emotional thing happened, and it was like a 17-second shot with no talking. And they were talking about how crazy that was for TV. They were like, they were debating cutting it. They were like, it is nuts to have a 17-second shot. That was like,
that's a long time.
It was on somebody there, and it was totally like visual storytelling. There just was no talking, but they were showing this like conversation that was happening. I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was when Pam had her baby with Jim, and the two of them, it's shot from like behind this window, so you don't hear anything. All you see is their emotional reactions, like hugging each other and crying. Super emotional, like an amazing scene, and it's like 17 seconds of silence. And so in YouTube terms, it's almost like, imagine if you cut out a lot of the emotion, or just kind of quickly we're like, and then they had a baby and it was so exciting, and then we moved on to this next thing. And it totally removes that emotion from it, where if you kept that in, even if it's not super punchy and fast, but you had this, you made the viewer feel something.
But I feel like that is what a lot of people do, though, Sam, right? Because we're so used to going into an edit and removing all those gaps, right?
Right.
But that's where your video breathes.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to get from one? And I'm not telling you to not do that. I'm just saying, consider leaving some in from time to time.
Yeah. Well, I think of even music too. It's like, it would be a really boring song if it was just fast, the same speed the whole entire time. You kind of need the low moments so that the high moments have a higher impact. Otherwise, it's just bland and kind of boring. So even in like you can have the fast paced moments where you're like moving and, it's a chase scene or whatever. And then you can let it breathe and slow things down too. And it just kind of ebbs and flows in a way that is more satisfying.
What do you feel like we're seeing people crave more of now on YouTube, rather than just the regular fast pace, now that it's been happening so much?
I've seen a whole movement of wanting vlogging to come back. Right? Which is definitely a lot slower paced. I just feel like there's just been so much go, 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 go.
Yeah.
That people are tired a little bit. And I'm not saying that it doesn't have a place, but even like you said, Jimmy, and even some of the other creators are really leaning into storytelling.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're telling a story is not a one note. Okay, there's transformation, there's peaks, there's valleys. It has rhythm to it.
I think even targeting a different emotion too. I feel like a lot of the spectacle challenge content has been just the excitement. But for me, I feel like some of the best artists out there, and even some like people who like proud to work in directing or writing songs, for them a win is having the audience feel something. And I know one person always said, like, I know I've made it when I've made someone cry. That's when I know I've hit the right emotion, right? And maybe we're just so done with being, because it's a lot of just like information being thrown at you, a lot of fast pace being thrown at you. It's fatiguing for the mind, right? When we just don't get a chance to feel anything. And some of the best movies that I've watched have brought me to tears, and that's kind of what I enjoy the most because there's more to it, more depth.
I always look for. I think the content that I love the most on YouTube is the stuff that because I love it when they pull at the heartstrings and really can hit me in a place that I wasn't expecting. Right. But it's those pieces that actually make me laugh.
Yeah.
Because every time that I had one the other day, a video make me laugh 3 times in a very short amount of time, and to the point where I was like, "Wow, that doesn't happen to me." And I was like, genuinely, there was a genuine payoff for me,
Right,
and that felt good. And it wasn't in this niche. Yeah, it was actually in an educational space, believe it or not, because they told a story.
Yeah, when I think of this, I just put myself in the shoes of a creator who maybe feels like, how am I supposed to make somebody cry? Or like, maybe I'm not super funny. Like, how do I make someone laugh? And I think for me, maybe a thought that comes to mind when I feel the most impacted as a viewer and feel the most likely, like I want to subscribe or stick around or like really follow this creator is just when I'm moved in some way, whether that is like actually feeling emotional or if it's like an inspiration thing or like, I don't even feel like it needs to be this super strong emotion, like a visceral thing. I think even when it's just like, wow, like I'm connecting with you and you've moved me in some way, that always is the thing that makes me feel like you stand apart from all the other creators who do kind of a similar thing to you. I want to stick around and watch you because you moved me in some way.
And that reminds me of a conversation that the 3 of us had, like about primal branding, right? And when people lean into creeds, and to me, that kind of like what you're talking about, Sam. You know, like when you connect over that moment, and it doesn't have to be where it moves you to tear or make you laugh or anything like that, but you feel something, a pull, if you will, a relatability thing.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I almost feel like if we were to like synthesize that into like, what is that thing? I feel like that's like authenticity or relatability. It's like there's enough humanness as a what am I trying to say? There's enough humanness that the viewer can identify and relate and connect with that thing that was kind of transferred through the screen.
Yeah.
I feel like the authenticity part of that, when I think of some of my favorite channels on the platform, they're just having a conversation, kind of like the 3 of us are right now. We're just having a conversation, right? And it doesn't feel forced. And I think maybe that's the thing, is the challenge niche and the spectacle niche, a lot of it feels forced.
Yeah.
And so when you're really like thinking about the things that resonate with you and the channels that you really love watching, the channels that pull you through and you watch the entire video, you don't put it on double time, right? You watch it in real time. You know, none of those channels force conversations. You know, Marquez Brownlee is a great example here, right?
Yes.
He's just him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just him. Yep. Has been since the beginning. Right? And his videos are a little bit of a slower pace.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of breath in there.
I feel like, and I love the use of analytics, and I think they're helpful, but I feel like it's pushed us away from the moments it takes to develop like if I think of a movie, there's ups and downs, and there's moments to develop the character and that sort of thing too. And the analytics are helpful, but I feel like for me, just outside of YouTube, it's looking at it as a whole. It's like we now remove those opportunities sometimes a little bit because we're so worried about dropping viewers in those moments. And I feel like we're so in pursuit of the best video possible, or I feel like we're almost pursuing the perfect video retention wise, and not allowing imperfect videos to just surface.
You know, it's interesting. Blake, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Ingrid, I think you're on vacation for this. It was in our StrataChat meeting, but there's this gaming channel with like millions and millions of subscribers, and he does a lot of Minecraft content. And so I don't know how he did this, but he basically created this AI rig to watch his content, study his content, and he's created it in this way where it's totally hands off. The AI system will create content for him. And so it will write the script. It'll create, however it's doing it, it'll create the gameplay. It'll make the video. And there's like an AI, I don't even like rig of himself. It's like a 3D model of him. But he basically was like, I just want, I want to be able to get content out there without me making the content. And it was really interesting. He made the first video. I think by now it's probably about a month old, but he put the first video out, and like all of the comments were just like, this is creepy. You know, this isn't you, like, this is really weird. There was this total reaction to it because it was like the same video that he probably normally would have done himself. But the fact that it removed all of the humanity out of it was really kind of disconcerting for viewers.
You know, that's true in the sense as well of like just seeing people wanting to, like, calling out there's no humanity in it. It's the creators I feel like I see are doing the best, allow their humanity to shine through. And again, when we get back to the idea of the 3-bucket strategy, having the community content, that's where that really comes into play. People think I just need to have a video perform really well every single time over and over and over and have the best retention. And it's like there are moments for that when it comes to like our content being surfaced. But when your channel shines is in those moments of community content, which I view now as like those depths or those moments or those elements of your channel that allow that connection to be built. And that's where you can be. And I tell people all the time, because I get pushback for community content a lot because they're afraid it won't perform well. I'm like, be okay with it not performing well, but just treat it as like, this is your opportunity to just have fun with the video, let who you are shine through, because that's going to serve you the best in the long run than people who are trying to chase views all the time, which I've worked with, and they get so exhausted because no one's showing up after a while.
I always like to tell creators, what would it look like if you just let go of the results for 1 or 2 videos and you just focused on a specific intent? Your goal is to connect with your audience, and that's not about views. It's about getting the right comments, not even the most comments, the right comments, right? So if that is the goal for that video, what's it going to take to create that? To me, it's going to be a story, right, of some kind, but it's going to be having a conversation with your audience. And that deep, deep connection will help to establish you, right, as their person. Yeah. As well as, Yeah, no,
that's great. And with that in mind too, like what are some strategies you think we could incorporate? Like what are some practical strategies you think the audience can incorporate to create more authenticity and more authority for their viewers that's maybe away from the challenge, format?
I think we're on the same wavelength. I was just about to ask, like, if way over here on this side of the spectrum is the over-cutting and over-editing, then maybe the way other side of the spectrum is leaving way too much in. Like, if a creator was asking, like, where is the balance? Like, how do I do that well? I think that'd be an interesting conversation.
Well, I think maybe it's thinking about just even how do you have a conversation in a normal day-to-day, right? If you were to take too long or put too much stuff into the conversation, would the person you're talking to be with you all the way to the end?
Your eyes glaze over. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, every time I talk on the podcast.
Pretty much.
You guys, your eyes glaze over.
That's why we edit most of it out. You just don't hear that.
Yeah, Sam, you're actually not a part of the podcast at all. We just edit you completely.
But I feel like when we show up and we're completely present in a conversation, so stay with me here on this. You're completely present in the conversation. You're really intentionally listening to the other person, right? And then you wait for what they're saying and then you respond, right? Just, you have to wait until they're done talking in order to respond because you need all the information. What would that look like in an edit? Does that make sense even with me using that as an example? Because I feel like it's a practical everyday thing. Talk to your partner, your wife, your husband, your kids. Try and be present in that conversation to have that authentic conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, actually, it makes perfect sense because you guys may have felt this, like if you're around people that you don't feel super comfortable with, or maybe they tend to like jump in and interject often, it almost feels like you need to speak faster and like I gotta get it all out as fast as possible.
Example, yes.
Where if you feel like you can really sit in this space and this person is going to hear you and kind of your heart behind whatever you're saying, you can give it the time to like give the context and share fully what you're trying to say and not package it into this like very succinct statement.
I feel like that's where the camera shyness comes in a little bit, or like the pressure of needing to make the perfect video as you're creating it pushes you to like, I have to say more. I have to make it faster. And exactly like Ingrid said, I think one of the best ways to do that is just take the pressure off the analytics for a little bit and let the video be what you feel like is going to be the best for it to be. I love that thought. I think I might actually share with some more creators moving forward. So,
yeah, you're not going to break anything too. You know, I feel like, you know, to piggyback on all this too, with the question that you asked, Blake.
Yeah.
To really lean into you and refrain from copying others. Because I don't really feel, from everything that I have seen over the years, it really doesn't yield results, in all honesty. You know, that kind of content, when you're truly trying to copy somebody else, it's not your voice. Mm-hmm. And chances are your analytics are going to show that you're not connecting on that level. But when you put the blinders up and you really lean into you and what your story is going forward, and you start to really lean into like primal branding and you share your beliefs and all that, that's where you're going to start to see those little flat areas in your graphs.
Yeah.
And you're going to start to establish a lot of connection.
Even to touch on that too, I feel like if you're constantly trying to copy what somebody else is doing, what if they stop creating? What are you going to do next? Or as people evolve and get bored of that content, you know, you're stuck on the same wavelength. Now you're doing something that's no longer appealing to people. Mm-hmm. Now what are you going to do next? So instead of chasing like, you know, a carrot you're never going to get to, it's like start growing your own garden. It's a really great metaphor, Blake.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I'm going to get that tattooed on my chest now.
I try.
No, I think this is really important though. And I even think of like, as a creator, I think it's easy to look at the immediate, like, how do I grow tomorrow? Like, how do I blow my thing up tomorrow?
Good point.
And so when I think of like a thriving long-term channel, I really think this like a small little emotional component is so helpful, because what if you decide to pivot your channel 5 years from now, and for the last 5 years you've edited your videos like crazy, it's all, you know, just super pun, it's all about the spectacle, it's all about the thing. You know, when you go to pivot your channel to maybe something else, and your subscriber base or your community, they don't really know you or what you stand for or your heart behind things, it's going to be a lot harder. Where I think on the flip side, I mean, you even see creators nowadays who kind of like break the rules. I think of like Peter McKinnon and, you know, some of these guys that it's like, they're kind of at this point where they have left in so much of this stuff to create this connection where they're almost kind of freed up. Peter McKinnon could probably put out any kind of video he wants, and his audience, his baseline is going to be coming and watching every time.
Well, to be quite honest, so much of what he does has been cinematography and using cameras that are all digital. And he's recently decided to dip his toe into actual film.
Yeah.
Which is not that audience. I mean, it's still a line, but it's kind of an interesting new bucket for him. Bucket.
Well, it's like his story. It's like his story. He's there along for the ride and what he's doing next.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And that he's being unique, because that does not happen on every channel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If everything you do is around the digital sphere, and now all of a sudden you're shifting to film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even
he's
drawing
being very
on that,
transparent though too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Blake.
Even drawing on that as well of, you know, Peter McKinnon now being able to kind of put whatever he wants out there. You know, he's created that trust with his audience of, you know, not And I'm not saying neglect the idea of making content that's going to be out and a bit more fancy and kind of pull the eyes in, because you need some sort of discoverable content. But having that community content too at the same time, he's able to do that now and have the freedom that people will show up, but you have to earn that trust in the meantime. So, what are your thoughts about the idea when it comes to the balance between discoverable and community content?
That's interesting. I almost feel like the kind of base that discoverable and community content kind of stem from are I think your value proposition and kind of how you brand yourself needs to have a deeper why too. Because even thinking of Peter McKinnon, he's not really branding his channel or using this language, putting all of the emphasis on your one-stop shop for the best digital photography resources. He's always talking about the why behind what does photography do for you? That's kind of the collective thing there. So I feel like even with that being the base, having a stronger why, that kind of frees you up a little bit when you get to your discoverable and community videos, because if your audience, again, kind of thinking long-term, I think if you bring an audience in that shares that same value as you, then there's maybe less risk with quotation marks around the discoverable video and the community. Oh, the community video is not going to go so far, kind of a thing. I think as long as you're kind of building that strong audience, you can really resonate with people well, regardless of kind of what bucket you're making content for.
Well, I really think, if talking about Peter here, he shares a lot of personal stories. He showcases things that he's extremely passionate about and interested in. He's very transparent with everybody, right? These are all the things that we've been talking about. And he doesn't copy anybody. Everybody copies him, right? So, there's your little special formula for how to show up in an authoritative and authentic way, in your content. And it is very different, I think, than the challenge and spectacle niche, which feels very forced. That's not to say that it's wrong. I don't want anybody to hear that.
Yeah.
Because it's an exciting niche, but it's very different from that.
If you're not passionate about the challenge content you're making, it's not going to shine through. But you can be super passionate about, I even think of just sports, why people watch sports, that kind of is challenge content in a sense. But it's the competitive passion that all of the players have, and then the viewer watching the sports, that's a shared thing that clearly goes through the screen. So yeah, if you're trying to slap challenge content and you don't really care about it, that's your viewers are going to pick up on that for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I feel like switching from challenge content to authentic content or authoritative content doesn't mean you give up on entertainment or engagement. It's just you're now focusing on enhancing those factors by offering more content that resonates on a deeper level with your audience, building trust, building friendships with your audience, because that's what really lasts and creates lasting growth and success on YouTube for your channel. Every week, we love to leave you with a power tip, something that YouTube is doing on the platform and a new feature. And this week, we're talking a bit about related video on Shorts. And what it is, it's a way to direct people from your Shorts content to your long form content. You can choose which video, but it has to be one of your own. And in the Shorts feed, when people are scrolling through, they can click on the link and it'll bring them to the long form, either of that video. You can make that short a clip from that video. It can be something related to the topic you're sending them to. But it's a great way to direct people to get to your long form content from your Shorts form feed. Right now, it's only available on desktop, but it's viewable across all other devices as well too. And I'm curious your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think about this coming to the platform?
I think from a strategic point of view, the thing that's really cool, because I know you were talking about long form, but you can also link a short.
True,
so
that's
you can
right.
connect
You can do
shorts.
as well.
Yeah. And lives and anything that you've created, right, as a creator.
Yeah, it just seems like a nice way to link your content together. I know right now it's a bit of Shorts viewers are over here and regular form viewers are over here. So just another tool to kind of share audiences, building that bridge. Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah, I think one of the harder ways is getting people to find your short form content and then getting them to watch your long form content. So the more seamless that transition is, the better. And even one of the coaches mentioned earlier the idea of even we could have different parts to the short itself and kind of creating a weave of traffic that way would be interesting as well too. So I'm really excited to see how this turns out.
That's an exciting power tip, Blake.
Thanks for listening to another Video Creators podcast. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Peace.